Hey everyone, this is a video that's actually been requested from some friends at Sacasti High School. So I see your school colors are black and gold from someone who went to college at a school where their colors were black and gold. I felt compelled to help you out here. So uh, this video was requested for to model an exhaust manifold. It actually kind of plays off of one from Lars Christensen. So he's an Autodesk employee that has a lot of great videos, tutorials. I really recommend checking out Lars Christensen for anybody who wants to see some other things. So he does a great job. I'm going to kind of model off of that, maybe just a little different methods. So something that might help some students out there. And so let's go ahead and get started. First thing is I'm going to go to document settings. I'm going to make sure the exhaust manifold measurements that we're using are going to be in millimeters. So I'm going to change my unit type over to millimeters, and then we can go ahead and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch on the XZ plane here. So again, my coordinate system is set up where Y is going in direction up. You could change it for Z up, especially if you've changed it for any sort of machining applications or anything like that. But I'm going to go ahead and do a center diameter circle. One thing here is as well is I'm going to uncheck. One thing to kind of talk about is this 3D sketch option. We're going to use it here in a little bit. I had this open from kind of demoing this and preparing for this video. So I'm going to uncheck it. I'm actually going to finish the sketch. Let me go back into the sketch to show you. Some of you might see this happening. So when you don't have that turned on, every time you sketch something like a circle, you'll notice that I don't have that triad that shows up. So I'm going to go ahead and just, and I don't like it because I think it tends to kind of get in the way. So, and I only use it when I need it. So I'm going to go ahead and make this 50 millimeters, and we're going to go ahead and create a rectangular pattern. I'm going to select the circle. We're going to go at a distance of a negative 225, and we're going to put 4 instances here. So then that way we can do that. And that's set on extent. We're just going to go ahead and say OK. So that gives us our 4 circles that'll have our 4 ends to our manifold. We'll go ahead and finish the sketch, put this into the home view. We're going to go ahead and create an offset plane. So if we go to the construct panel, you can select offset plane. And from the XY plane, I'm going to offset this by negative 300 millimeters. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. We're going to create a new sketch on that created work plane that was just there. You can still see kind of reference of those 4 circles right here. But I'm going to go ahead and create another circle purposely up here in the first quadrant. And let's dimension this to be... It's going to be 80 millimeters in diameter, and then horizontally, again, this may happen to you. You may want to drag your cursor or move your cursor down here. So this is going to be 100 millimeters from the origin horizontally. Vertically, it's going to be 150 millimeters. So just kind of give you some measurement there. I'll go ahead and finish the sketch, and here's what we've got going on. So what we need is we need some sort of path. We're going to loft this circle to this one, and then it's going to go from this circle to this one, and just kind of have like tubes that are going to come out. Again, it's a manifold that's going to go through and go to each one of those. So I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch. We're going to do this with the first one. I'm going to create a sketch on the XY plane. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a vertical line right from the center point of that first circle that's 50 millimeters tall or long in length. Now I'm ready to, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into the home view. So that way you can kind of see is we're going to take a line and we're going to connect this back to our circle back here. I can't do that unless I check 3D Sketch. So I'm going to go ahead and check that. And when I do, to run my line tool, you're going to see that triad comes right back up here. And I'm going to purposely zoom in here to make sure that that triad, because it gets a little bigger and smaller depending on your zoom. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I grab the endpoint of that line that I just drew. You're going to see the triad moves to that position. And then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to make sure that I grab the center point of that circle. And that's going to create our path. Once I'm done, I can click the little green check mark. So that way that's set up. And I can also right click and say OK to stop running the line tool. The issue that we're going to face if we don't kind of do this first is we need a little bit of a bend right here. So then that way, or a fillet, and we're going to put about a 40 millimeter fillet there just to give it a little bit of relief. Otherwise that loft command is going to kind of collapse in on itself and it's going to give us some errors. So, and in here it'll tell you some of the constraints are removed. That's okay. This line will be blue. It will not be fully constrained, and that's okay. So actually what I found is it gets rid of that horizontal vertical constraint on that line. So actually if we go here and we just click that again, make sure this little line segment's vertical, then it's all good. So now it's all fully constrained. So just to make sure, I'm going to go ahead and finish the sketch, choose the loft command. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I choose this circle, and then I'm going to zoom in here, make sure I grab this circle. Make sure you don't grab the center point because it will funnel down to that one point. I want to make sure I'm actually here inside of the boundary of the circle. So you're going to see, here's what it's going to try to do. It's going to try to create this kind of transitional shape. I'm going to go ahead and choose the guide type over to center line, and I'm going to choose the line to go ahead and make and have that be the path that it follows, or it's going to be the center line and it bases all the geometry around that. It's going to create it as a new body, and I'm going to select OK. Now this is where things get a little frustrating at times, is once you do that, the sketches get consumed by the loft and it turns them all off. And so everyone gets a little frustrated. They're like, everything just went away. But you can always bring them back by going over to the sketches folder in the browser, turning on sketch 1, which was the 4 circles, and then sketch 2, which is the larger circle there. I don't need sketch 3 because that's the path for this one, so we already have that done. So I'm actually going to toggle that off, make sure it's toggled off, and I can go ahead and repeat this process for the other 3 circles. So, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So again, just to do this again, choose the XY plane. I'm going to create a line off for the second one, 50 millimeters tall, put this in the home position. The one thing that you may need to do is that when you try to do this to this circle, as you see this right here will happen. So you may need to toggle the visibility of the bodies off. So I'm going to click the eyeball next to bodies. So then that way I can actually grab the center point of the circle, select OK, and then I can go ahead and place the fillet on there just like how we did before. So you may need to toggle that back on or off. And then again, this one looks pretty good. It's all fully constrained. I can finish the sketch. I do need to toggle the bodies back on, so otherwise it's going to give me an error because when I try to add this next section, so which is going to be from this circle to, and this was actually something I learned from the video that I watched from Lars Christensen. So if I click and hold down on my left mouse button, I can actually go through and get a selection, and I want to choose profile. So you'll see that circle gets selected, and then I can go ahead and choose the center line, choose this one, and make sure this operation is not set to cut. It thinks we want to get rid of some stuff since we've got some solid geometry already there. I want to join it, and I'm going to go ahead and select OK. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat that for 3 and 4. And while I'm doing that, I'll just kind of say I did try this to do just a little bit more of an efficient process of, kind of doing all 4 of these lines in one sketch, and just tried to make this a little bit more. The loft command has a little bit of trouble with chaining some of the the lines. Like it would pick up two of the center lines a lot of time, and it would just cause a lot of errors. So what I've found is just trying to get just trying to get these and doing these all one at a time. It's actually worked out pretty well, and being able to do this process. Now, the one that I've got here, and I'll make a little note, and what I've found and experienced with this particular model that we're trying to create is here in this 4th kind of tube. And everything works pretty well, like everything looks normal as we try to do it with the other 3. However, here's what I've found is if I run the loft command, I select the circle, I select the profile, and I try the center line, this will happen. Even if I select join, it gives me an error that says failed to perform Boolean operation. And so it's like, okay, well, why is this kind of happening? So here's what I found as the workaround. Rather than having profile 1 and profile 2, I can actually select up here in the menu. If I click this little X button, I'm going to clear both of these out. And so I still got the center line selected. It's got it picked. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select this circle. And what it is it's this up here. So when I left click and hold down my mouse button, I actually need to choose, here's a face that highlights, which is the whole first body that we created. I'm going to choose this third one for the face. Suddenly, this works. Not really sure why, not really sure where the error comes in, but rather than choosing profile, if I choose the face, which it's still going through and connecting, everything is good. So if you run into that problem, that is what's kind of going on in that particular instance. So I'm going to go ahead and select OK. I can go ahead and toggle off the first two sketches and collapse that sketches folder. And let's go ahead and run the shell command. I'm going to go ahead and select this large circular end, and then we're going to choose the 4 ends here. And we're going to make that 5 millimeters. It may take it a second to do the calculation, and everything should shell. And we go ahead and say OK. So again, might take it a second to finish the calculation. And now we're ready to finish out the last part. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this to the back, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new sketch. I want to select, I usually try to pick between the circular ends there. And we're going to create the bracket where it kind of goes through and gets attached as it goes along. So I'm going to choose the line command. As I hover over a circle, you can see there's going to be a kind of a light blue circle that can be done here. And I'm going to go ahead and draw out and go to the end. And you can see that triad shows up. I'm going to uncheck that. And then I can right click and say OK. So once I'm done with that sketch tool, you can see it kind of connects to that midpoint. So I'm going to go ahead and select that line. I'll press the X key. You can also select the toggle over here in the line type. I'm going to toggle this to a construction line. You can also right click on the line and choose normal construction, and that'll make it into a construction line. I'm going to draw a line kind of at a diagonal like this. I'm going to purposely miss that center point. And what I want to do is I want to dimension, and making sure that I keep an aligned dimension like this. I want this to be 150 millimeters. I would like to coincident this line to this end of this one. And I also want to choose the midpoint option, choose this line, and choose that point. So that way it's right directly in the middle there for our part. So the only other thing we're missing is I'm going to dimension between this line and this line. I'm going to get an angular dimension, and I want that to be 45 degrees. So now that's fully constrained. From here, I can do some other work. I'm going to go to Create, go down to Project/Include, choose Project. I'm going to make sure to choose, I'm going to put my cursor right here between the two, right here on the face of this circular edge, so that way I get both of these. I can say OK. Then I can go ahead and create 2 center diameter circles right at the endpoints. These are going to be 20 millimeters on each, right here at the endpoints of these 2 lines. Or of this line, I should say, at each end. So from here, I can use the offset command. I'm going to offset these by 5 millimeters each. And we're going to also offset the outside edge of the projected lines, or this purple circle, by 5 millimeters as well. And then what they would like us to do, I'm going to move this dimension up just a little bit, is we're going to take some lines. He tells in the video we can hold the shift key. You can do that, or I could just kind of draw lines between these like this. Sometimes you'll get tangency, so if you click in the right spot. But if you don't, we can always use the tangent geometric constraints up here to kind of make that happen. So again, I kind of go through and make sure that I'm gonna get that a little bit. So I always go through, take tangent, take the line, take the circle, line to the other circle, and it should be fully constrained once you do that. So if it shows like that, you can see sometimes though it doesn't always do what we want it to do. So we can go through and kind of fix that here in a moment. So let me get this one here. So here, if I choose that endpoint, it's for some reason it's got a coincident there. I'm gonna go ahead and delete it. And actually, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this line. Sometimes it's a little bit easier just to do that. I'm going to go on the outside, go to this point, tangent the line to the circle, tangent this line to the larger circle, and it looks like it keeps trying to snap to something. So I'm actually just going to delete this line, and I'm just going to actually draw it outside here. Anytime you have problems with lines like that, mine tends, you know, you can always draw it outside, tangent there, and looks like for some reason it's just needs to be extended in there a little bit. And I can always go through either one of two things. Either I could extend this line till it touches, which is what I would really do, or you could have just drug it out like that and trimmed it away. Either way will work. So finish the sketch. So there's our kind of profile. Choose the extrude option. So I'm going to choose, I want to leave the interior circle here to be left alone. I can select this, select that. I'm going to choose this outer edge. I also want to choose these inner edges. I don't want to choose inside the larger portion here. And if you, for example, accidentally click something you don't want, hold the Shift key on your keyboard, select it again, and that'll get rid of it. So it should look something like this. I'll highlight it in blue. We're going to go for a 10mm extrusion. And we're going to say OK. And it's going to join. There's our bracket there for the manifold. And we can see there is, we can look inside and see all the shell operations still there, as well as taking a look at the ends of our manifold as well. So. Alrighty, this completes the modeling of the exhaust manifold, and so this is an advanced part to work from, so definitely see a reason why I got the request for it, and it did take me a little bit of time to go through and kind of practice with this and see, especially, you know, Fusion had a little bit of some hiccups on some ways that I tried it at first, so don't be ashamed, you know, for going through and running into some issues. So it's definitely one that very advanced and was definitely worth the challenge. So hope this helps, and we hopefully this goes through and makes life a little bit easier for everyone.